Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. This afternoon and evening, I just want to bring you a recap of the day's proceedings. This was the day on which we expected Advocate Ngumalo to make that 174 application for the discharge of accused number 4, Mutoguzisen Maphisa. And the application went ahead today. And what a day it was. Ngumalo graphically and in a very extensive manner outlined the case against Maphisa. And by the look of things, listening to Ngumalo's address to the court, there is really no evidence on which the court can convict. Because at this stage of the trial, the real test is, would a reasonable court, in possession of the sort of evidence that Judge Ratamokhatling is in possession of, convict under the circumstances? Clearly, like I said in the episode this morning, in the morning edition today, that there is no such evidence. The DNA evidence is simply non-existent. All the DNA evidence provided in this trial so far does not in any manner implicate Maphisa in the commission of this crime. He also dealt extensively with the question of the alleged confession that Ntanzi had made. Because it is largely on the basis of that confession that the prosecution is saying all the other co-accused of Ntanzi are then linked through that confession. Advocate Ngumalo addressed that so well, because in law, that confession, assuming the confession was made, and it was a bit troubling because he has to make the confession, he has to make the assumption that the confession was made. But that does not prejudice anybody, because he then goes on to say, even if that confession was made, the contents of that confession do not implicate anybody except the maker of that confession statement, Bongani Ntanzi. And this is if, it can be believed that he actually made such a statement. And we all know that Ntanzi has vehemently denied ever making a confession of any sort. So it was a very interesting day. Another development which is shocking about this trial is it has now, mutated into a double-headed monster. Because while at the beginning, and Advocate Ngumalo did touch on this, while at the beginning we saw the case develop along the lines of a robbery gone wrong. A robbery gone wrong that resulted in Kelly Khumalo's cell phone being seized by these alleged intruders and the eventual death of MEYIWA. The case now has become, a double-headed monster in the sense that it is no longer that. If it was a robbery gone wrong, they should have called the evidence of Kelly Khumalo in respect of the robbery charge. Count 3 of the indictment talks about this robbery, of Kelly being a victim of this robbery, and allegedly she had, a cell phone seized from her. But as we all know, that cell phone has never been found. So that was the initial, approach by the prosecution. But I think the prosecution is extremely confused. Because along the way, they now want to make, they now sort of switch from that position of a robbery having gone wrong to say it was an actual hit. So that sort of raises the bar for the prosecution. and makes things very difficult for them. Because if they are going to prove their case beyond reasonable doubt, then they have to prove, one, that Kelly was the mastermind. Brigadier Gininda has already indicated that Kelly Kumar was the mastermind. So there must be a definite link between the mastermind and the foot soldiers. Allegedly, the foot soldiers, are the 5 men sitting in the dock. But that evidence just does not exist. What is this case all about? Is it about a robbery gone wrong? Or was it a hit? It cannot be both. It cannot be both. This is why I'm saying this evening that, Baloyi and Gininda just seem too confused about where they are going. Either this case is a robbery gone wrong, right? And it can no longer be a robbery gone wrong because they have failed to call Kelly Kumar, the victim of the robbery count, right? So they are now coming up with, the only thing that they are left with now is, to establish that it was a hit. And there is just no, connection between these people and Kelly Kumar. There is no proof that she paid them anything. There doesn't seem to be anything that sort of, shows without, any, element of doubt that she was the mastermind and, these people were in her pocket and she ended up paying them and so on. So this makes things a bit very, very confusing. Where is this child going? Is it what are we trying to prove here? Are we trying to look into a robbery gone wrong or a hit? I don't think even Baloyi or Gininda or both of them know where they are going because they seem to be clutching at straws. But coming back to Advocate Ngumalo made a very sterling presentation today. It took him the whole day, but you could hear him as he made that application that it was well researched, and chances are, you see, if Judge Ratamohate applies his mind, to the facts, it clearly comes out that there is no case for Maphisa to answer. He only runs the risk, like Ngumalo was saying, of supplementing the prosecution case and ending up convicting himself out of his own mouth. Now that is not acceptable because the prosecution bears that onus to prove his case beyond reasonable doubt. Accused persons have no obligation or are under no obligation to prove that they're themselves innocent. So in this case, we see that not only the prosecution of this matter, rather confused, but we see there's no prospect of the prosecution proving its case beyond reasonable doubt, at least insofar as Maphisa is concerned this time around. So having said that, let me conclude this episode by saying thank you very much for all the views and subscriptions that I'm seeing. I'm glad and I'm very much motivated by seeing that the support that you have for this initiative. And have a nice, wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you.